Hi everyone! Today we'll be talking about the Cohesity 5 Steps of Cyber Resilience. My name is Isabel Yang and I'm a product marketing manager here at Cohesity. Today I'm super excited to be joined by Shelly. Shelly, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Shelly Calhoun-Jones and I'm the Technical Marketing Director here at Cohesity, and I'm real excited to be here.
Awesome. Now before we dive into the 5 steps in front of us, let's start with why is cyber resilience so hard? When it comes to cyber resilience, many organizations falsely assume that cyber recovery is the same thing as disaster recovery. When it comes to disasters, you know what happened. Whether it's a power outage, a hardware failure, or a natural disaster, your teams are able to quickly recover to the last snapshot and get business back up and running. When it comes to a cyber recovery, the issue is that you don't really know what happened. You don't know how the attacker got in, you don't know when the attacker got in, and you don't know how much of your infrastructure or your data is really affected. That's why we here at Cohesity recommend thorough and proper incident detection, response, and forensics to make sure that you're recovering to the last known clean snapshot. And that's why we've come up with the Cohesity 5 Steps of Cyber Resilience, which is really derived from our experience working with hundreds and thousands of organizations of all different sizes across the world and all different verticals. Now let's start with step 1, protect all data. And this is really our foundational step that all the other steps build off of. Although it might sound very straightforward, what we're hearing from organizations is this can actually be a very challenging step. And that's because organizations that we work with are dealing with anywhere from 300, 400, and even 500 different sources of data, and it could live anywhere from on-prem data centers to at the edge to public clouds like GCP, AWS, and Azure. That's why it's super important to make sure that all of your data is protected in a compliant way. With many of the industries that we work with, whether that's financial services, healthcare, or their public sector, there is very specific regulations and compliance needs that need to be met while being under one unified governance. That's why we here at Cohesity are excited to provide this scale and the speed that is truly incomparable when it comes to protecting all of your data under one unified governance in one single platform.
Now, I love the fact that we have a single platform for managing all of these different data sources. We want to make sure that our data is protected. We also want to make sure that our data is recoverable. And so the idea is that by understanding the data within our environment, understanding these different workloads, we can make sure that we meet both our recovery time and recovery point objectives. We can do this by creating protection policies. Protection policies give us the ability to isolate our data within a protected cyber vault. And so the idea is by understanding our workloads, understanding our data, we can make the determination of where we want to store this data, whether or not we want to have this data on a local Cohesity cluster. Perhaps we want to replicate to a different Cohesity cluster, or keep our data within a cyber vault, which gives us that protected air gap. We keep it within a segmented part of your environment or out in the cloud, and we can determine how frequently we want to be backing up or replicating that data to our vault.
Those are all super great points, Shelly. And one thing I like to stress is that we are increasingly seeing attackers going after backup data, and that's because they know that that's your last line of defense. So in order to prevent your backup data from also becoming encrypted, you want to make sure that you're proactively detecting and investigating threats, which is our step 3. When it comes to detecting and investigating threats, there's both a proactive and a reactive component. Proactively, backups can actually be a tremendous source of intelligence where you can do threat hunting with key capabilities like ransomware anomaly detection, threat scanning, and hash-based hunting to make sure that you're proactively seeing if anything looks suspicious and you're actually investigating it and then remediating it before it becomes a full-blown compromise or cyber incident. On a reactive component, after a cyber incident has occurred, it's also super important to run these threat investigation and forensics in order to understand how the attacker got in so you can close those back doors and you're recovering to a clean and trusted state.
Now, I love the fact that you mentioned that we want to make sure that we understand how the threat got in. We want to do that post-mortem because that all feeds into updating your incident response plan. And this really leads us into practicing our application resilience because as we all know, Practice makes perfect. If we know the appropriate stakeholders to contact, if we have all of our tools in the right place, we can create what's called a digital jump bag, which allows us to go in and perform these exercises periodically with our team. It could be tabletop exercises. It could be going in and doing a rehearsal of a critical workload using tools like Recovery Agent. So practicing application resilience is very important, and also gathering that data from any recent security events and making sure that we have that incorporated into our security policies.
Those are all amazing points, and adding on to that, we have our step 5, which is optimize data risk posture. When we're talking to all of these CISOs and CIOs alike, they're telling us that their cloud and AI adoption initiatives are proliferating volumes of data that are truly unprecedented. And one of the side effects of that is you're not sure of where your sensitive data is, right? Whether it's in the cloud or if it's in your on-prem data centers, you want to make sure that you have complete and total visibility of where your sensitive data is, what it is, and if it's being protected, and who has access to that. And you need to have all of that intelligence and that visibility in order to proactively make sure that all of that sensitive data is both compliant and protected, so when you need to recover it, you can recover it compliantly and quickly.
I love the fact that you mentioned that, Isabel, making sure that we're meeting our compliance and governance goals. And it also helps us if we are responding to an active situation, because we could have a server within our environment which is being used as a staging point. If we do have an active threat on our network, we want to make sure that we're preventing that data exfiltration as well.
Absolutely. And another thing that we're hearing is one of the worst nightmares that a CISO can have is when a breach happens and they're scrambling to get their systems back up, and they're also scrambling to make sure that they're meeting the disclosure and compliance regulations. They also need to make sure, hey, I need to quickly identify what sensitive data was impacted so I can not only tell regulators, but I can tell my customers, right? Anytime you see a headline that an organization has been attacked, your first thought as a consumer is, hey, did that affect my data? So it's super important to have this step locked down and make sure you have that visibility and close the gap of visibility, protection, security, and recovery.
Yeah, I love all of these different key points. And the fact that these different pillars feed into each other. The idea is we want to build a strong foundation for our security initiatives by protecting all data. We also want to make sure that our data is always recoverable. And not only that, but we want to be going through those regular game day exercises so that we know exactly what we need to do if we are dealing with an active security event.
And that is a great segue to my final takeaway, which is that this is a continual process. Your job is never done because our attackers are getting smarter, and as your organization grows, so does your data. So you need to make sure that you're repeating these steps, and that's why we here at Cohesity are excited to partner with you wherever you are on your journey with the right technology, people, processes, and services in order to help strengthen your cyber resilience so that you can bounce back faster and confidently from any cyber attack.